A bill seeking to create additional seats for women in the National Assembly has passed second reading in the House of Representatives. The reps voted in favor of the bill on Wednesday, aiming to encourage the participation of more women in politics. The bill, sponsored by Honorable Nkiruka Onyeji-Ocha and 85 other lawmakers, seeks to alter some sections of the 1999 Constitution that stipulate the composition of the Senate, House of Representatives, and State House of Assemblies, and the proposed legislation will make compulsory for every state to have one additional senatorial seat reserved for a woman. It also seeks to create 2 federal constituency seats reserved only for women. Tundu, your thoughts on this?
Well, I commend Honorable Onyeji-Ocha and the 85 others who are supporting this bill. It's really important that gender equality should be attended to. I was actually quite dismayed when the gender equality bill failed to pass in the Senate a few years ago. I have not recovered. And then after that, the affirmative action bill failed as well, trying to enshrine that 35% affirmative action into the Constitution. It failed. I see no reason why it should. So you know I'm fond of a cake analogy. So what it is that if the men will not give the women their slice of the cake, which happens everywhere, frankly, women are now having to resort to baking their own cake, since you guys will not share. So 1 Senate seat each per state, 2 seats per federal constituency, State House of Assembly is not forgotten, 3 special seats for a 16-year trial period. It makes sense, raising the current disaster we have right now, 8 senators and 13 House of Reps members being female, which is shockingly low as a number. It will raise it to a minimum of 37 senators and 74 House of Reps members. However, for the sake of consistency, not constituency, I have to say that I do worry about our over-bloated government. I do. There are just too many people. We can't even afford a bicameral legislature as far as I'm concerned. And now we're talking about adding more people, even though we're talking about adding more women, which ordinarily I would leap at the chance. I would actually prefer for the cake to be shared equitably rather than having to do this other measure that we can ill afford, frankly, as a country.
Well, Tundu, in Professor Akintenewa's voice, you cannot be more correct. But let me take the issues one after the other. I agree with you absolutely, the point that you made about the size of the National Assembly. What Nkiru Onyeji-Ocha, who is one of the ranking members of the House of Representatives, or if you like, the National Assembly, is taking. She's been there 4 times. She's been in that National Assembly since 2007. She's been one of the most outspoken and progressive members of that House of Representatives. And we'd like to commend her for bringing this issue back to the front burner. And the fact that she's supported by 85 members of that House of Representatives is quite impressive. It means that some progress is being made. And it is also heartening that at the end of the day, there was a unanimous endorsement of that particular bill for a second reading after the House of Reps Speaker put the motion to a vote. So we assume that beyond this point, there will be input from the public, and we will have another opportunity to have a robust debate around this all-important proposal, which has been on the table since the return to civilian rule in Nigeria since 1999. However, to come back to the issues, what is the proposal? Including Onyeji-Ocha and 85 others are seeking an amendment of Section 48(1)(b) of the 1999 Constitution and also Section 49 of the Constitution with regard to representation. And what they're saying is that every state should have an additional senatorial seat for a woman. They're also saying that there should be an additional federal constituency and that this should be replicated at the state level. Where I agree with you to start with is the point about size, because it's like increasing the size of the National Assembly. I think that that may be a major issue in the debate. Even within the existing framework, women can still be accommodated. And we've been talking about affirmative action for women forever. There is, you will recall, what is the legal justification for it? The Constitution of Nigeria does not agree to discrimination against anybody on the basis of gender. What we have had in the political system in Nigeria is that women have been discriminated against. There is systemic discrimination in terms of what we call women political representation. And it's not just about coming up with an affirmative action principle. It's also about changing the structure of politics in Nigeria, because the structure of politics in Nigeria does not favor women. Not enough women are allowed into decision-making positions. They are at the mercy of the goodwill of whoever is in charge of the country or is in charge of the political party at a particular time. You will recall two major instances. Under President Obasanjo promoted women representation, political representation. He gave positions to women, strategic positions. You will recall Okonjo-Iweala, you will recall Ngozi, you will recall Obi Ezekwesili, and others who were very strong, women in his government. Now, Kema Chikwe was Minister of Aviation. Now, under President Jonathan also put women in strategic positions, either in the ministries, the departments, and the agencies. The purpose of taking a look at the law and the auxiliary issues in terms of how we play politics and the structure of politics is to ensure that women in Nigeria are not at the mercy of men, because the Constitution does not allow for that. Now, what is the advantage? The advantage is that if you include women in the political process, then you take advantage of the full qualities within the space, within the political space. Look at women, prominent women, Nigerian women who are doing very well internationally, who are doing well in the private sector. But when it comes to, partisan politics, they are constructively denied. In the various political parties, the women are made women leaders. They have a women's wing. A woman cannot be secretary of the party. If you know any party where a woman is the secretary, let me know. Or where a woman is the chairman of the political party in Nigeria. They are always in the women's wing where they can wear ashwebi, dress fancifully to massage the ego of men. That is the kind of change that Nkiru, Iyejocha, and others are protesting. They are saying they don't want that. They want a situation where women can be equal partners in the development process in Nigeria. As at this moment, in the National Assembly, the representation of women is 4.4%. Now, when they did a study of countries in terms of women representation, Nigeria was about 176 over a total survey of 186 women, 186 countries. And in Africa, we are far behind. So in debating this particular proposition, motion, bill, as proposed by Nkiru Iyejocha and others, we should look at some of the best examples across Africa. Ghana is next door. They are doing better with women representation, or if you like, affirmative action. Rwanda is doing much better. Uganda, Zimbabwe, South Africa. South Africa has a policy in place and a law in place to ensure women representation. So these are some of the countries that have done very well. But in terms of the general African outlook, Africa is still far behind. And we just need to realize that, look, all of this, beyond politics, beyond representation, also has to do with education, also has to do with women's reproductive health, decision-making, and how, we deal with the challenge of patriarchy, which is at the base of all of this.
I want to ask you, because you're a politician, my idea, well, the nuts and bolts, is that we should have female-only primaries for certain seats. Do you think that will ever fly?
Well, no, that may not. What some of the political parties, particularly People's Democratic Party, has done in various elections is to say that women do not pay for forms. And that is to encourage women, to take the forms. You don't pay to participate. But then there's a lot that needs to also be done in terms of the education of women, in terms of their mobilization, in terms of their involvement, in terms of how political party meetings are held. The received misconception is to say that, women who go into politics are women who don't respect their husbands. We have to deal with that.
Well, and that's a wrong
political party meetings should take place during daytime, not at night.
Not nighttime.
When husbands or partners will say, no, my wife cannot attend the...
And I think most importantly, if I can get a word in all of this, Thomas Isodori Noel Shankara showed us the way on how to do this. That's all on News Headline. We'll take a short break. When we return, we'll have Rod Sudiri, Michael Wilson, Edison Omoro, Aaron Akerjola to give us updates on Africa global business, sporting activities across the globe. Stay with us. All right, welcome back to the Morning Show right here on the Rise News channel. Let's go straight to Rod Sudiri. How are you doing, my friend? We're talking business with you this morning.
Yes, business, and we're only focusing on one massive story today. In fact, let's take a look at the front page. I'm actually channeling Mr. Ifeni this morning. Good morning to you, Doctor. Good morning, Rufai. Good morning, Tundu.
Hey, good morning.
Right at the top there, if you take a look at the, you see that CBN queries First Bank as CEO is purportedly ousted. Says the bank is under, forbearance, liquidity support, and can't remove a helmsman without approval. Also, shareholders weigh their options. Otudeko Odukale, which is of course Oye Hassan Odukale, chair of Leadway Insurance, and of course Adenuga are in battle for control. So it seems like what's been going on with respect to this sudden change at the top of the ladder at First Bank could be a proxy for a boardroom struggle that's going on. So let's start this out. We kick off, of course, with Mr. Benga Shogo. He's the one that, and I broke this on the Global Business Report yesterday at 3 o'clock, the moment I got the news after confirming with sources. So he was appointed, if you take a look at Mr. Benga Shogo, there he is. So he's been at the bank for a little while. He was appointed by the board as the new managing director, effective yesterday, April the 28th. Now, the issue here is this. If we take a look at Dr. Shola Adedutan, Dr. Shola Adedutan has been at the helm of First Bank since 2016. The bank gives 3 terms, right? The central bank allows for a full 10-year tenure. So his first term was from 2016 to 2019, right? 2016 to 2018. 2016, 2017, 2018. He's now in the middle of his second term. Again, this is the current MD CEO, Dr. Shola Adedutan. His current term was from January of 2019 up until December of 2021. So he still had another 8 months to go as the head of the bank. And so all of a sudden, we get this press release yesterday, which wasn't official. I have to state this. The press release, it was circulated. I confirmed it. We did our due diligence. That's not the press release. That's from the central bank. But let's keep our attention on Dr. Shola Adedutan for a moment. So he has 8 months to go in his term, and he was suddenly removed. And this announcement was made. So this is what prompted the central bank, because it is subject to regulatory approval. Now, the First Bank did send out a notice. This was late yesterday. It wasn't on the NGX site. This is, of course, referring to the stock exchange. Let's take a look at the notice from the press release from First Bank. They put up a press release. If you take a look at the press release didn't actually show who the recipient was. That is the recipient of the which is supposed to be the exchange. They're supposed to notify the exchange officially, but there was no recipient on there. So it seemed a bit rushed. Now let's get into the central bank, because the central bank now sent 2 circulars out, rather notifications to the bank. So this is the first one, which this day exclusively got their hands on. And I tell you, everybody has to read this day article, because it covers this story from top to bottom. Where is Nollywood? When is Nollywood going to start covering these boardroom dramas? They're intense. So that's the first circular. The central bank pointed out that, hey, listen, the appointment that you made there, notice you did not bring us in. As far as the regulations are concerned, the central bank is supposed to be notified. The central bank also mentioned the fact that he's got 8 more months to go. You didn't let us know why all of a sudden he's being removed, and all of a sudden you're just making this announcement. So also, regulatory forbearance is when a central bank provides support to a bank that has issues with depleted capital. So the central bank was also stating that, look, as far as the liquidity support is extended to you, regulatory forbearance, with the assistance, you have to, by law, let us know what's going on. So there could be dire consequences, not only for the bank, but also the financial system. CBN is saying that you can't just have banks just, making sudden announcements like that of management changes at the, at the board level without notifying the regulator. So that was the first circular, the first notification from the central bank to First Bank. The second one has to do with, and this gets a little into the weeds here. This one is talking about the audited IFRS accounts for that's International Financial Regulatory Standards, IFRS, accounts for the financial year ended December 31st. Now, they wrote this, of course, to the chair of First Bank, saying that we are concerned that the bank has not complied with regulatory directives to divest its interest in Honeywell flour mills, despite several reminders, which over the last 4 years the bank has been reminding them of. And the thing is, they're saying that, they further noted that after 4 years, the bank is yet to perfect the lien on the shares of Mr. Oba Otudeko at FBN Holdco, with collateralized the restructured credit facilities for Honeywell flour mills, contrary to the conditions, precedent for the restructuring of the company's credit facility. So those lines are essentially liens that the bank was supposed to have solidified and hasn't done that. The bank essentially said that as a result of not doing that, they are suspending the facility immediately, and payment on the loans which are collateralized by the shares would be due immediately. Now, I think they're giving them, Central Bank gave, in that circular, they gave the bank until 5 p.m. today to comply with that. That is essentially, now think about this. Imagine you've got an existing credit facility and all of a sudden you have to pay it off all at once. I mean, there's billions behind that. If that was to happen, if the central bank follows through with this and they force them to pay, there's going to be a big liquidity hole, and it's going to shift control at the boardroom level between what's going on between Otudeko and Odukale and Adenuga. So it would shift that. So, the key thing here is this. It's incredibly dramatic. The regulator is reminding everybody about the rules and regulations of what's going on. And the key thing here is that there should have been notification to the regulator with respect to why Dr. Adedusan was removed. Now, we've done a lot of investigations. Again, do read that article from this day because it goes very, very much in depth. Now, this is the next stage. They've got a deadline of 5 p.m. today to respond to the central bank and tell them why he was suddenly cut short. His term was cut short because, again, he gets 3 terms. He was lobbying for a 3rd term with the bank, but that was cut short. They have to explain that. And also the key thing there is that lien, the credit lines linked to Honeywell flour mills, if the central bank brings the hammer down and essentially asks them to pay back that money, there's going to be a whole can of worms that's going to be opened up.
It's obvious, but you see, the funny thing about all of it, it's not a good thing, is the fact that there are a lot of levers moving behind. So this is just very surface stuff. But there are a lot of levers moving behind. I don't want to mention names because I don't like to go into mentioning names.
It's in the article. You can mention names.
But the truth is, there's a big war going on as regards the soul of the bank.
Right.
What they used to call sort of like a hostile takeover.
Correct.
So there's a power play going on between some heavy big wigs, and it might tilt. We all know Oba Otudeko has got loads of shares in First Bank. Other people too have got shares in First Bank. I correct me if I'm wrong. I think Arishekola Laotu used to have some shares in First Bank. Yeah. Split across the board. Then Mike Adenuga has got shares in First Bank. But it's about the dominant shareholder. So there's more that's meeting there. As I can bet you for free now, Rotus. A lot of phone calls are going. That 5 p.m. target, you will see it will either, it will tilt the balance of First Bank, and it will be what will determine the future of First Bank, which they say is one of the oldest banks in this country, 125 years, oldest bank. Yeah. And going. But one thing is certain. When the elephants fight, it is the grass that suffers. These big people involved will fight. But I just pray it doesn't affect the job of an average person in the First Bank family.
It won't. The thing is, I have to emphasize this. The central bank is saying that you are supposed to notify. This is even in the press release. Even said that look, this is subject to regulatory approval. That's the point. That is the main takeaway here.
I would like to draw attention to a number of issues.
Yes.
Dr. Kazim Adeshola Adenutan, he was re-elected at the FBN AGM on Tuesday. Fact, right?
That is correct.
And then he was sacked by the board yesterday. Right. Isn't that bizarre in your view? So that's one. The second point is that, yes, clearly there is a battle for the control of the bank. And the key stakeholders, Oba Otudeko, the Odukales, and also Adenuga, Otumba Mike Adenuga, who we have even been told that because of this fight, he's not even been able to get his own directors into the board of the bank. So the question I want to ask you is this, or one of the questions. we've been told about regulatory forbearance for the past 5-6 years. Now, those of you who monitor the financial sector, what does that mean? What is the implication of that 5-6 years regulatory forbearance? For the dormant account, I have a dormant account in First Bank, which my father opened for me when I was 10 years old. So is that dormant account, is this still safe? Because in none of this, you are talking about big names, you are talking about, boardroom politics. How about the ordinary people who have a stake in that bank? As for the CBN, yes, the CBN is just staying within its province, saying that, look, if anything happens to First Bank, it could have implications for financial stability, for the financial space in Nigeria, and that regulatory approvals have not been followed. But I thought that Mrs. Ibukwa-Woshika yesterday was saying that all the announcements that they made will be subject to regulatory approval. So let us see what the chairman of the bank does by the 5 p.m. deadline that she has been given today. And then there's some money that we're told is being owed by Honeywell to the tune of about 70 billion. So what happens? How would that be resolved? But what is important is a point being made by the CBN about the stability of the financial system and how strategic the First Bank of Nigeria is in that regard. And then don't forget that my dormant account. We have to discuss it. It has to be safe when I call it up. Yeah,
so there's the NDIC, the Nigerian Deposit Insurance Commission. Your funds are safe. There's no problem. You don't have to worry about it.
Dr. But how much is there? In the spirit of full disclosure, how much is there? Was it no, I don't know. Was it a trust fund account your father opened for you?
Even if it's 5,000 naira.
Your funds are safe. Your funds are safe. They're completely safe. But the key thing is that loan and the credit lines to Honeywell. Again, as you said, Doctor, to the tune of billions, if the First Bank follows through and says you must pay that money today, come on, there's no way. Now, it's a credit line, so you pay it proportionally over time. So there will be massive ramifications. But look at Polaris Bank, for example. Central Bank took over from Sky Bank, established Polaris Bank. We went over their results with on the Global Business Report. The bank is solid. That is a testament to the support the Central Bank gives to banks. So that's fine. The issue is just following the rules.
There's no smoke without fire. Why is that all of a sudden they are putting out that loan that they must collect it now, overnight? Why?
Again, that's regulatory forbearance. As in support for the bank is saying you're supposed to follow the rules.
And they didn't follow it 5-6 years ago. Rotus, it is well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Moving on to business update, Michael Wilson joins us from London. Michael, great to have you. Good morning.
Yeah, good morning. Back into what we term the global recovery trade, really, after the FOMC was suitably dovish yesterday. People read slightly between the lines. I'll come on to that. But basically, people feeling as though inflation is still a long way away. But there were some slight warning signs. Overall, then, Asia and Europe's data calendar is very, very quiet today. Very, very cautious, basically. Cautiously bullish, I think, is the way to put it. Asia markets, Nikkei 225, Kospi up about 0.3%. China, not a great deal. People were piling into tech listings there. Hang Seng about 0.5% higher. Samsung Electronics now its strongest first quarter profit since 2018 on the back of strong mobile sales. They're doing very well on this Galaxy S21 line. Sales of television and home appliances saw strong growth. But like everybody else, they're worried about the shortage of semiconductor chips, and that's dented it very, very slightly. By contrast, Huawei down. A lot of the consumer business not doing very well there. And he warned, the chief executive has warned that 2021 could be quite a challenging year for Huawei. We've talked a lot about them, and we understand the global problems that they're facing right now, given their supposed links with the administration in China. So basically, if we were to get we're going to talk about the United States, and next Friday's jobs, the big one, if we get 1 million plus created there, then the equities will do extremely well. that ties in with this kind of feeling that the FOMC yesterday were slightly warning about inflation, not hugely, but there was a reference to jobs and so on, and the increase in the rapidly improving consumer spending in the United States and the rapidly improving jobs market there. So there's a feeling, therefore, that bond yields may be rising, and of course, well, we all know what that means. So that slightly dampened Wall Street yesterday. S&P almost unchanged, basically, and Dow fell about 0.5%. And so on. The US earnings continues today with Amazon results, and we'll see what happens there. Joe Biden has been doing his 100-day speech yesterday. He's been pointing out the sweeping proposals for jobs, education, healthcare, social care, and so on. This, as I've told you before, is going to involve some $4 trillion worth of spending. Republicans have said this is a liberal wish list of big government waste. That's at least one. So, despite the slim Democrat control of both houses, the plans face obviously a battle in Congress. So to Apple then, and massive results from them, a surge in iPhone sales, hugely in China. Facebook also a lot, but I'll come on to them in a second. Customers were wanting to upgrade to its new 5G phones. Apple expects its revenue to be 3 billion to 4 billion less than what it could be if it could meet enough iPads and Macs to meet demand. So it's in a very happy position of demand outstripping supply at the moment. It will increase its dividend by 7%. It's also, there'll be $90 billion worth of share buybacks. So on to Facebook then, and that revenue jumped 48%, the world's largest social media company, but we have to reflect against that. This new feature being introduced into iPhones and iPads this week, which is causing a huge rift between Facebook and Apple. It'll allow device users to have their say in the kind of data that's collected from their apps, and why not? We all use them. But that will have a massive effect on where advertising will actually be placed and directed towards which particular parts of our consumer behavior, and indeed which particular parts of our consumers. And given that both these megatech companies are succeeding on a lot of ad revenue, it's going to be an interesting fight. So we turn our attention to the EU, and we know that that big recovery fund that's actually there. We also know in our heart of hearts that there's going to be a lot of waste, there's going to be a lot of fraud. So the EU is actually being quite tough about the way this money's been spent. It has to say this. Whether it will be tough, we'll see about that. I don't know. Basically, Bulgaria, Hungary and Poland are already been spending where they shouldn't have been spending, not defrauding, but just spending money on schemes not agreed. They've got a fairly loose idea about that. And I think that tends to happen with most people. If you give people free money and they're not dependent upon it, and they're not dependent upon earning it, then they tend to be less worried about where it actually goes. Now, yesterday, the EU, the EC, the European Commission ratified the post-Brexit agreement. That sounds extremely boring, but the fact is that UK industry groups have now gathered and said that they would like our government to clarify what that actually means for customs union and the rest of it. In other words, to make trade as liquid as possible between the UK and the EU. And with that, of course, read UK, EU and the rest of the world too. Banking reporting season continues here. Lloyds Banking Group, optimism, £1.9 billion in profit. The only uncertainty there is if infections start to rise. Standard Chartered up 18%. Winding down its provisions for bad debts. Emerging markets all doing rather well. So Standard Chartered actually giving a good global recovery indicator there. As far as commodities are concerned, oil powering ahead on those US recovery group. Nothing to do with supply and demand, all about global growth and all about that thing. You can expect that everybody will now wait for these jobs figures next Friday from the United States, which will underline all this. And the FOMC slightly, very, very, very slightly hinting about inflation has naturally pushed gold a little higher. It's sort of getting to about $1,800 an ounce, $200 an ounce, much less than it was at its peak when we were looking at this a way back now. And the day ahead, very, very busy, the busiest day of the earnings season, 11% of the S&P 500 reporting today. And also, if you think about Caterpillar, McDonald's, Comcast, Merck, companies like that reporting, we're going to have a very, very interesting picture. Amazon, of course, Gilead Sciences, Services, Twitter, US Steel, and Western Digital will be posting quarterly results as well. So there'll be lots to talk about when I join you tomorrow for another look at the global roundup.
Okay.
Thank you, Michael. I wanted to talk about Apple and Facebook. Apple makes their money selling devices and apps, so they don't really have any need to mine data in the way that Facebook does. And Apple has also shown support for the ad industry, so this is not a fight against them. Apple is giving them free tools to assess how successful their ads are without giving their customers data. So it's a win-win, but not a win-win-win. Facebook is the only one who has a problem with this, and I frankly don't really mind that Facebook has a problem because it's just too intrusive. Have you noticed how if you buy one thing, I don't know what you like, I don't know, a pair of shoes or whatever, and you're on another website, that advert follows you, literally follows you all over the web. It's ridiculous. So I really have no problem with what Apple has done. I think it's great.
Right. Okay. So real quickly, Michael, I just want to talk about two things. Number one will be America for me. Joe Biden came up with this grand plan yesterday. In fact, he had the first 100-day speech. Normally, I thought the American president only missed the joint session of the parliament on State of the Union address, but I'm shocked about this one. But he said he's got this big plan. And he says he wants to spend $1.8 trillion on American families, but he's going to take the money from capital gains tax. When you check capital gains tax in America, over 39.6% for capital gains. Republicans are riled up as regards this. They are saying this will stifle innovation. Yeah, let's not forget the fact that the argument is America is growing. The first quarter grew about 6%. But will this not decelerate the growth? Because you need those big business owners. That's going to be number one for me. Number two will be what is happening in Britain as we speak today. How can you even assure me, with all the scandal with Boris Johnson and everything, and James Dyson sending in text messages, that the furlough scheme was not mismanaged? Because the jury is out on that in England. You guys are so quick to say we Africans are corrupt, but this is corruption staring at you in your doorstep. Two questions.
Yeah, okay, so United States, first of all. Yes, I mean, the bet is that it will recover and the tax brought in will actually help some of this spending. Nobody's worried about debt. I mean, I am, you are, but generally speaking, the markets are not that worried about about debt in the United States. And I mean, that'll be when the next bond auction comes up, we could maybe talk about that then. And because that really is where the money is. It's not what people say, it's how they actually spend it and what the money does. So I think that'll be the most important indicator. Yes, I mean, he's promising a great deal. 100, I don't share with your problem about him speaking after 100 days. It's what presidents do. They pick on this 100 days thing. I mean, because that's how they measure the kind of progress that they've made. They come in, they want to hit the ground running, they want to say, look, after 100 days, I've done this, just the way American politics work. They are grandiose schemes. My worry about all these grandiose schemes, as I've always said, is that these politicians, with the best will in the world, God willing, and all the rest of it, will not be necessarily alive or compos mentis when the other generations have to start to pay for this. That's the number one worry as far as I'm concerned. As far as Boris Johnson's concerned, look, I'm not a political commentator. I only look at the markets. Are they worried about this? No, they are not. Are the majority of people in the country worried about cash for curtains and all the rest of it, whatever you may call it? No, they are not. I mean, as far as I can tell, indications are political polls here, public opinion polls saying they're not particularly worried about that. As far as furloughs concerned, yes, there will have been fraud. Yes, there will have been waste. Yes, there will have been misspending. It shielded a lot. I don't really understand, if I'd been a politician, what else I would have actually done. I think you have to throw money at a problem like this. Yes, they have to pick up the pieces, but gradually the political damage from that won't be a great deal. Where the political damage will come from is the way in which this furlough scheme has actually shielded the correct, as far as we know, amounts and numbers of people who are unemployed in this country. And the same goes for the United States. The same goes for anywhere where there's been any intervention in the labour market, like this big cash giveaway. We do not know the true state of the problem here. Now, you never know it exactly in any economy, naturally, but you can take some good guesses. At the moment, that furlough scheme, yeah, there will have been waste, there will have been criminality and all the rest of it. Sure about that. But the main thing is it's shielding what the real problem is. That's my big worry about it.
Well, Michael, very quickly, a lot of symbolism yesterday when President Biden gave his first congressional address after 100 days. Two women, for the first time, Madam Speaker and Madam Vice President, sitting behind the American president for the first time in history. But I would I've wanted you to comment on how the markets are responding to the Biden presidency, particularly within 100 days, in terms of stock performance, dollar performance, and also bond yields. Do you think that we have a president who, in 100 days, has been able to focus on the major highlights? As for the Republicans, yes, they are complaining about socialism. They are complaining, well, Congress is divided anyway. But at the end of the day, it looks like the Democrats will still have their way. This is the third plan: infrastructure plan, family plan, jobs plan. But I would like to have your assessment of 100 days of Biden from the market perspective. And then, do we need to worry about Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos, fighting, trolling themselves on social media over contracts from NASA, and who gets that contract and whether there was transparency or not? Because Blue Origin has now gone to the Government Accountability Office to accuse SpaceX, and we have all that untidiness. Or we should just stay here in Terra Firma, where we belong, and not worry about all these lunar contracts that are in the future.
Markets are completely divorced from anything that goes on at the moment. We've talked about that many, many times, haven't we? Nothing to do with politics. It's all to do with expectation, where the market's pricing. If they price too high, then somebody comes and sells, and then they go down again. So as far as bond yields are concerned, again, slight worries about what the FOMC was saying yesterday. This is nothing to do with Biden. Remember, as far as I'm aware, that Jay Powell has not yet met President Biden. The chairman of the Fed has not yet met in face-to-face the president of the United States. What Biden is doing is the politics of it. He's actually setting his stall about social change and trying to reverse as much as possible that happened under Trump. As far as trade's concerned, this is important as well. We've had a slight mollification about discussing things with countries, but as far as stepping back from the foot forward against countries like China, nothing's changed as far as Biden's concerned. Again, the 100 days thing is purely symbolic. You're not going to turn round an economy like the United States in 100 days. You can make proposals, but it's down to businesses, it's down to entrepreneurs, it's down to creating the kind of crucible that's going to allow this kind of infrastructure and businesses to succeed. He's not doing that by raising corporation tax, but I don't really see what else he's going to do. That isn't a big one. The big one is always income tax, and it's always sales taxes as well. That's where the big money comes from. So far, income tax may well go up. Corporation tax or corporate taxes, neither here nor there, basically. I mean, there are a lot. Are they putting people off? No, they're not. Because at the margins, your company's accountants are actually looking at those kind of figures and saying, first of all, do we actually like being here?
All right, thank you so much for your insights as always, Michael. Really appreciate you for your time. For update on COVID-19 pandemic, Adeso Mora is here with us.
Good morning, Rufai. Good morning, Dr. Bati, and good morning, Tundu.
Morning.
The global coronavirus cases are nearing 150 million, and that's according to the Johns Hopkins tracker on your screen, with global infections rising by around 800,000 a day, and with at least 3.1 million deaths recorded so far globally. India has posted another record rise in cases and deaths today. India's crisis is the world's problem, and particularly neighboring countries such as Pakistan, that is now recording record deaths and surge in cases as well. According to this Johns Hopkins tracker, it means about 1 in 50 people worldwide have now contracted the coronavirus since the start of the pandemic. Let's come to Nigeria, where another 81 new infections and no deaths were recorded in 11 states, according to the NCDC. Lagos again posted the most infections for the day. And vaccination continues in some states across Nigeria. Over 1.19 million Nigerians have now received their first jab of the AstraZeneca vaccine. Remember, only states that have reached half their consignment are to stop to enable full vaccination. That is, those who have received the first dose can get a second dose for full coverage. Although the government says a shipment of vaccines should be arriving in the country sometime in May, late May or early June, low and middle income countries have received most of their vaccines through the COVAX facility and donations, leaving them behind in global vaccination drive and at the mercy of others. And I think Nigeria is one of those countries, we can confidently say. Meanwhile, in a World Health Organization push to raise extra funds for the COVAX International COVID-19 Sharing Program, the WHO is encouraging people to donate $7 or £5 for a COVID vaccine to help end the pandemic. Launching the Go Give One campaign on Wednesday, the WHO Director General Tedros Ghebreyesus said it would allow anyone who wants to play their part in vaccinating the world with a simple donation and in time to end the pandemic. It is estimated that $7 is the cost of buying a vaccine dose and shipping for someone in a low-income country. The COVAX facility is aiming to secure 2 billion COVID-19 vaccine doses for the lower income countries by the end of this year. Now, in Europe, according to a new report by the European Union Disinformation Unit, Russian and Chinese media are systematically seeking to sow mistrust in Western COVID-19 vaccines through disinformation campaigns. The EU study says from December last year to April this year, the two countries, that is Russia and China, have used their state media outlets to push fake news online in multiple languages, sensationalizing vaccine safety concerns, making unfounded links between jabs and deaths in Europe, and promoting their own vaccines as being superior. They say that they seized the vaccine supply issues with AstraZeneca, as well as the very rare side effects with the jab, that's the AstraZeneca jab, and as well as the Johnson & Johnson vaccines. But the Kremlin and Beijing have denied disinformation allegations by the EU, talking about vaccine diplomacy going to another level. Well, finally, it is no longer news that India's second wave is spiraling out of control. But what is news at this time is what social media platforms have been doing in recent days in India, and what is also suspected to be government's clamp down on dissents who are criticizing Narendra Modi's government's handling of the crisis. So what you have on your screen right now is Facebook temporarily blocking posts containing hashtags calling on the Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi to resign. This was for several hours in India. Then Facebook then reinstated, of course, the hashtags on Wednesday, saying that the action was taken in error. The social media platform had declined to say what exactly led to this action, but let me tell you that earlier in the week, India's Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology had asked all social media platforms to remove some posts accusing people of creating panic by spreading fake or misleading information on the coronavirus crisis. But it is the MO of the Indian government, actually.
I mean, Adesua, see, Narendra Modi can try everything he wants to try, but he should resign. He messed up coronavirus in India, and I'll tell you why. Arundhati Roy, the writer of the book, The God of Small Things, great Indian celebrated writer, wrote an op-ed for The Guardian today, and you need to see how they messed up things. You see, at first, it's not even about COVID. It's about the healthcare system in India. Do you know today that 78% of the healthcare provided in the urban areas in India is provided by the private sector? Government spends little or nothing on healthcare in India. So it's even a worse and basket case. In the rural areas, 71% of the healthcare is provided by the private sector. So there's next to nothing as regards government spending. Secondly, Narendra Modi and his BJP party were so concerned about elections. Do you know, amidst the figures rising, the elections are still on? They thought the 8th cycle of the election in West Bengal is going to finish on the 29th of April. As at this morning, they were still counting votes in West Bengal. And guess what? Candidates in the elections have even died due to COVID. And they're still counting their votes. So when does a leader draw the line between politics and following science and taking the right decision? Narendra Modi messed up the entire thing in India, and that's why people are calling him to resign.
The most they've done for those elections is that they've said once results are announced, there must be no procession, which they normally do in India.
Can you imagine? But the election must go on at the expense of people's life.
Okay.
Look at this morning. Okay.
Yes, I was going to say, I don't see Narendra Modi resigning.
Indeed.
Facebook suspended that hashtag, but they've restored it. They've since restored it. But the big issue at the moment, the tragedy of India, is that at the moment, the people are literally on their own.
Yes.
You know, across all the states, they've become helpless. People cannot access the hospitals because the hospitals are filled up. Cremation centers can no longer take more people. And I think it's a big tragedy that this has happened in a country that at a point launched the biggest immunization program in the world. The flip side of it, however, is the global solidarity that we have seen. Countries, the US, France, Germany, UK, all rushing, you know, oxygen tanks to India to see how, you know, they can help. But the big part of it, which I had pointed out previously on this same program, in this segment, is the lessons that we can learn from India. India dropped the ball because they thought, you know, they had conquered, they had made an effort, but it didn't turn out that way. So there are lessons, key lessons, that other countries, particularly Nigeria, can learn from India. That's one. Number two, you talked about the Go Give One campaign by the WHO. Now, before now, the WHO had what they call the WHO COVID Solidarity Fund under the 2021 Preparedness and Response Strategic Plan. And even under that, you were expected to make a contribution. Countries were expected to make a contribution. And all of that was consistent with Dr. Ghebreyesus' position that this problem of the pandemic cannot be solved unless there is global solidarity, unless there is global cooperation, which is the same point made by WTO Director General Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala, that nobody is safe until everybody is safe. Now, they're bringing it down. Before now, they wanted to get $1.96 billion. Now they're talking about 2 billion doses of the vaccine, you know, to be distributed worldwide before the end of the year. And they're saying you and I, you know, should contribute just that $7. But what everybody must note, as the WHO has pointed out, is that they are not collecting people's bank details, and they are not collecting people's credit card details, because they warned in that Solidarity Fund website that you know, people should be careful the kind of information they give out. And we should also commend the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation that is part of this. And it's consistent with the point everybody has made. Only yesterday, Anthony Fauci, you know, the US top infectious diseases specialist, was saying that unless there is global solidarity, we will not be able to solve this problem, particularly with regard to the concerns of the low-income countries that do not have access. And the whole challenge is about global equity. So it's good to see WHO Foundation, you know, leading the charge in that respect. Finally, about aggressive tactics, blackmail tactics, alleged by the EU against China and Russia. Well, vaccine diplomacy, vaccine nationalism. At the time, we were even thinking that there will be vaccine war. But the EU, the European Medicines Agency, the EMA, should also take part of the blame. They didn't act early enough. They, you know, had issues with their own approach, but it's convenient, you know, in international politics to blame the other.
Yes.
Merkel and Macron should also take the blame for firing the first salvo against AstraZeneca. They were raising all kinds of doubts. And one of the stories they've talked about Russia, obviously Russia, we all know the reputation that Russian fake news has had. We saw that with the Trump elections and what have you. But one of the accusations was a headline saying that the UK escaped the EU sort of mess because of Brexit, and I fail to see the lie in that statement. They actually did. And Russia has to face the fact as well that their Sputnik 5 on Monday was rejected by Brazil's health authority. As desperate as that situation is in Brazil, they have rejected Sputnik 5, so they also need to do some, you know,
Indeed. Brazil is claiming that the vaccine had live virus in them, and of course that posed a threat.
So all this finger pointing is somewhat inappropriate.
That means if he had inoculated somebody, he would have given the person live COVID and killed the person.
Well, but the same vaccine is being administered in 61 countries in the world, and particularly in the Eastern Balkans. Where the Russians have...
But maybe they have lower standards, because the problem is that they did not provide sufficient data. So Russia does need to look within, quite frankly. As for Modi, you can block the hashtag, but you can't really block the sentiment. People are dying in their droves, and somebody has to pay for that.
And no matter how great the global solidarity, I think one lesson we should learn from COVID is if your leader does not lead, then you are warped. That's what's happening in India. Simple. Leadership. Thanks, Adesua.
Thank you.